Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how to replace rear brakes on this BMW 2016 BMW X5 2016. So the job is not that difficult. If you want it done at the dealership, it's very expensive, close to $1,000, maybe like $800 in parts and labor to have it replaced, just the rear, while the parts alone are in excess of $500. Here is the tool you need to get this job done. So this is your vehicle's lock nut, 6mm Allen wrench, 8mm wrench, 17mm long socket, 6 points. Do not use the 12-point socket, it'll rip the threads. Instead use this one. This is what you want. You need a long wrench. This is 24 inches. You need this to push the cylinder back, that you can get on eBay for about $10. This is 7mm Allen wrench. You'll need that. 14mm wrench, wire brush, rubber hammer, and of course the jack. But before we get started, I just want to show you this message popped up. This vehicle has 90,865 miles on it, which is something like 130,000 kilometers, something like that. And this is the first time these brakes are being replaced. So a lot of miles have been put on these brakes, OEM brakes. They're still original from the manufacturer. So if you go under vehicle info, vehicle status, service required, you see that it's asking for rear brakes. Front ones are still okay, they're still in green. It says 3,600 miles, but this is not necessarily accurate, and I wouldn't count on it. You simply don't want to replace it at 3,600 miles left, simply because when I bought this vehicle with 57,000 miles, I kept driving it, and only now I am getting these brakes, the rear brakes, replaced. So back at 57,000 miles, it was complaining that it had like maybe 1,500 miles left, but that wasn't really accurate. It depends on your driving conditions and everything else. So what you want to do, you want to wait until you get below 1,000 miles or 1,000 kilometers. So I have about 500 miles left, and that's just about right. Not too soon, not too early. And obviously this it has gone from the green to this reddish color, asking for these brakes to be replaced. So in this video I'm going to show you how to do that. So I have already replaced the brakes on the left driver's side wheel. It's basically the process of left and right is the same, except that on the right hand side the sensor is there's a sensor over there. So the process is the same, the approach is the same. So I ended up replacing this, and I figured, well, let me record this for somebody so that people can use this information and end up doing it themselves. So on the left or driver's side rear brakes, I want to show you what the disc looks like after 90,000 miles on them. You can see that this surface here it doesn't have any rust, and that's because it's an OEM wheel or disc, and it's a high quality disc. Normally if you buy aftermarket parts, you'll notice, first thing you notice is that this thing becomes very rusted after just about a year it becomes very rusted. But here we have an OEM disc with 90,000 miles, and as you can see, it looks as if you replaced it a year ago. So the wear was quite nice on this wheel, so it was braking quite good. I just wanted to get it replaced so that I don't have to worry about it. And as far as the brake pads go, this is how much the brake pad is left when the vehicle says that you have 500 miles left. Clearly you have a whole lot more than 500 miles on here, probably another 10,000 miles before it starts to grind. But hey, you know, I already bought the parts, so I figured I might as well replace it. This one, for example, has I would say there's like almost 10,000 miles left on these brake pads. But hey, you know, like I said, I already have the parts, so might as well replace it. So here's the new disc for the passenger side, and here's the new brake pads. The brake pads, and these are OEM parts, by the way. I bought these from a respectful eBay seller who sells these at a discount price. I paid for the 2 disc and the brake pads, the kit, the whole kit. I paid $400 with shipping. I had it delivered to my place, and if I remember correctly, something like this set of the rear discs and brake pads are close to $600 at a dealership. So what's the part number? The part number here for the brake pads, 34216 868 497. And then for the disc, and they're both the same for left and right, 34216 886 479. And this is for BMW X5 2016. So this is F15 body. Here's the new disc. Original OEM part. And you really don't want to buy anything else other than original OEM part. Here is what the sensor looks like. This is a new wear sensor, and this part is the last piece you need in the kit. So your kit should contain the 2 discs, set of pads, and this sensor, and the part number is 34356 854 168. So this sensor needs to be replaced before your job is complete. So here's something very important. This is a 17 millimeter socket. This is what you need for to remove the wheel. But last time I had this vehicle serviced, they ended up using impact wrench, and they applied a lot of force on these bolts here. And when I first tried taking them off, I ended up stripping a few of the bolts, so much so to the point where I thought I wouldn't be able to do it. Turns out the reason why that happened is because of this socket. Not all sockets are the same. If you look closely, this one has a more circular shape, 12-point socket. You want to avoid these, you want to stay away from these as much as you can. Why? Because if you don't, this is what happens. This is what happens. So these sockets are really bad. You don't want to use them. Stay away from them. Instead, you should use a 6-point high quality socket. This is a 6-point hex socket, and this applies force more evenly across the bolt. So stay away from the 12-point, use 6-point only, otherwise again you'll end up stripping this, and then that completely may prevent you from getting the work done. Just a side note. Oh, another thing, I attempted to remove these with a short wrench, and that wasn't possible. Again, the mechanic ended up applying too much force on these bolts with a impact wrench. So I ended up buying this 24-inch wrench. That's about 60-70 centimeters. So you want to have a huge pole, simply so that you can unscrew it. So let's get started. So first thing you want to do, you want to put a jack under the car, and it goes, where is it? It goes right here, at this spot. So you want to apply your jack in order to lift the car up. But before you do that, make sure you first loosen all of the bolts while the wheel is touching the ground. Otherwise you won't be able to when you lift the wheel up. I now have the wheel off the ground. It's only like 1 or 2 centimeters, half an inch above the ground, jacked up. So I'm about to remove the wheel. After you remove all of the bolts, what you'll notice is that wheel is probably stuck to the disc. You can try to hit it with your leg, and that's what helped. Okay, your foot will help. And then what you want to do, you're gonna drop the wheel and shove it under the car, like so, so that in case if your jack starts to come down, the wheel is going to prevent the car from dropping down to the ground, and then you'll be able to adjust it up. You may also put something else on the top to prevent your wheel from being damaged, but this is good enough. Okay, so a couple of things. The first thing, here we have a 6mm Allen wrench we need to remove this screw. Next thing, this spring here, you have to have that removed. And the way this comes down, you actually push against this. Let's see if we can get that taken care of right away. For this spring to come out, like so. So 6mm here, and then at the back we'll need a 7mm Allen wrench in here, and on the bottom right here, and then we'll also need a 14mm wrench to remove this guy and one below. To remove the Allen wrench or Allen screw at the back, this is what I'm using, and that goes right there. And I'm already loosening up, but basically you have to push up to unscrew it. This is on the passenger side. On the driver's side, you push down to unscrew because it's on the other side. In both cases, it's the right hand threads. So after you unscrew it, after you unscrew this guy, this screw and the one below, you need to loosen this sensor cable. And the way you do that, you just push against that, come off, pull that out, and then that goes to the other side. We have to get that replaced. So we'll see what's gonna happen there. Back to removal of the clamp. So after you unscrew it, you actually have to push the screw out so that you can pull it all down like so. Same thing at the bottom. After that's loose, this comes off. All right. So let's look at these. Let's look at these pads. What they look like. So, just like on the other side, when I showed you guys, this pad is really not too bad. It was showing us 500 miles, but there is at least another 10,000 miles on this pad, and this disc looks pretty good. Okay, so you have to get this pad removed. So back to the sensor. You have to unlatch these plastic pieces like so before you can pull the sensor out. And the sensor also is held over here, and you have to unlatch that as well. And then last but not least, there's a screw. Where is it? Right here. There's an 8mm screw. You have to unscrew that to loosen this guard. So there are two additional rivets, plastic rivets. You have to remove. One is here, one is here. They look like this. So you can just take pliers, pull these out, and then this is where the sensor is plugged. So you unlatch it here. And this is our sensor. This is where you want to unplug. Yeah, there's a little latch. So basically you have to unlatch this with a screwdriver. This little latch. And I need my second hand for that. At last I managed to pull the sensor cable out. Basically the way it works, they have this thing, 2 wires. There's a metal contact in the middle. That's what makes the negative contact. And then this part over here, that's where the second wire is connected live, and this thing wears as the brake pad gets thinner and thinner. It goes into this plastic rail, and then you put the cover on the bottom So what you're left with is this. So next thing we're gonna do, we're going to remove this clamp. Like I said, there are two screws, 14mm screws here and there. You have to unscrew those. So to unscrew it, 14mm there. Then what you need is a rubber hammer. You hit it from the bottom to unscrew it. You have to hold the wrench with one hand over here and hit it with the other one to unscrew it. The clamp is off. Before we forget, you have to put these things back in there. Like that. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm gonna knock this disc off. Remember, we already took the screw out. It's a 6mm Allen wrench. This looks really good, like the other one. As you can see, nice and even wear from both sides, and that's what you want. This we're not going to touch. This is all good. This is your rear brake, electronic, but this is rarely used, so it's almost never replaced. So next thing we need to do, we need to use this to push the cylinder back. This tool you can buy on eBay for like $10–15. There are many different sellers, or you can buy it locally, maybe in your car parts store. So basically all you gotta do is take your old brake, put it there, and put this in there, and then simply keep screwing it. Obviously need two hands, but keep screwing it in until the cylinder goes all the way back. Essentially we're pushing the cylinder back so that new brakes, which are much thicker, can sit in there. So the cylinder is now all the way back, as you can see. So next, we're going to put new disc under, for which you again need two hands. And then you need to line it up with the 6mm Allen wrench. So that's the first thing you want to put on there to keep it in place. Okay. So next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a wire brush and clean clean the pad rails. This rail here needs to be brushed with the wire brush to clean that. So I've cleaned this up with the brush as much as I could. It looks okay. So next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna apply some grease. You have to be careful not to apply too much because it may end up on the disc, and it's a big no grease on the disc. Just apply a little bit of grease along this rail so that your brakes don't squeak afterwards. And then we'll also apply some grease over here on the cylinder, as well as here, and some here, and I'll show you what that looks like at the end. Okay, so the grease has been applied. As you can see, a little bit of grease, not too much. You need to remove excess of grease, if any. And then here on this end, I've also applied some grease there, some grease there. So there's grease here, there, and here as well on this surface, because this is where the pad touches it. And then there's grease on the cylinder. Okay. Make sure you push that bolt back so that you can easily screw that in. So I have just installed the bracket. Sensor is still unplugged. The bracket is installed, and then you push down to tighten it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use this hammer, rubber hammer, to hammer it down. Make sure it's nice and tight. So here's what I have so far. I've put this pad here. The other pad is in there, and I'm now going to slide this assembly in place. Okay, so the bracket is on. I have tightened the screws at the back. And then you have this spring. That goes like so. Slides into place, and then and there's the sensor wire. Simple as that. This sensor wire is clamped like so. This screw goes here underneath where it used to be. So, very important, these screws here that hold this assembly, they are tightened by hand, as much as it goes. These I ended up tightening these inside ones with a rubber hammer and the 14mm screws, or the wrench. This one is 6mm Allen wrench. Make sure your sensor cable is in there, and next step is putting the wheel back on. So I just put the wheel on and evenly applied force between these screws. So this one, then that one, that one, that one, and then finally that one. And you do that by hand as much as it goes. You don't apply too much force while the wheel is still up on the jack, so that it sits nicely. And then you lower your jack. And then you take this long wrench and you apply more force to the wheel. Be somewhat conservative with a long wrench like this. You can apply too much force, so make sure you apply enough but not too much, so that you can take the wheel off again in the future if you have to. Otherwise you won't be able to. So last thing you need to do, you have to reset your brake sensor. If you go here again and you go under vehicle service required, you will see that your rear brake pads, it's still showing 500 miles even though we've replaced them already. So to reset, you actually go on this side, you press this, hold it, it says reset possible, rear brake pads, you press one more time, so that takes you over to front brake pads, one more time, so it cycles through everything. But if you come back to the rear brake pads, you have to hold it again, press it and hold it. It says reset question mark, asking if you want to reset, and you press it once more. I should have kept it, so go back to, so again, reset possible, hold it, it says reset question mark, and then press and hold again. It says reset in progress. When we go back here, it says 47,000 miles remaining after we've just replaced the brake pads. So that concludes our replacement process.